Hello everyone. We're going to be doing a video here today, starting out the first objective of the first part of Objective 3, Unit 4, which is we're going to be factoring trinomials that have a leading coefficient that is not equal to 1. And it's a pretty quick process to go through. You might need a calculator to simplify some of these, but let's go through and start going through the little details here, okay? When we look at the equations we're looking at here, when we say a leading coefficient that's not equal to 1, we're used to seeing problems where there's a 1 in that first spot there, but now we've got a 3. Or you'll see that there's other ones like 2s and 5s and things like that. So we need to first be able to identify each one of the locations here, what they each are actually called. So when we look at a number that's attached to x squared, we call that the a value. When we look at the value that's attached to the x, we call that the b value. We call that the b value. And we look at the value that's off on its own on the right side there, we call that the c value, okay? Now, as we're going through and doing this process, we're going to be referring to a, b, and c. You can see in steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 here, all these steps right here. We're going to go through each one of those steps one at a time, and you'll see these are pretty quick problems, okay? So in step 1, it says that we're going to go ahead and multiply a and c together. Well, when we look at a and c, we can see that those are 3 and 4. So that is equal to 12. Okay. Now in step 2, it says we're going to find the factors that add up to b. When we look at our b here, the b is a negative 13. So let's first go through and start finding the factors of 12. Okay, the factors of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. The only combination of numbers that will actually give me a negative 13, which is what we've got there, is a 1 and a 12. And the only way we can get that is by doing a negative 1 and a negative 12. Negative 1 plus negative 12 adds up to, negative 1 plus negative 12 adds up to negative 3, okay? And when we multiply those together, negative 13, and when we multiply those together, they'll multiply to equal a positive 12, okay? So that's step 2. In step 3, what we're going to do is we're going to divide and reduce the fractions by a. Well, the a value in this is equal to 3. So we're going to take and we're going to divide each of those by 3. And we're going to take those fractions and we're going to go ahead and reduce those fractions. So when we reduce those fractions, negative 1/3 right here, you'll see is already reduced. You can use your calculator to reduce it, but it's already reduced. However, negative 12 divided by 3, when we reduce that fraction, it actually ends up equaling a negative 4. So we have negative 1/3 and we have negative 4. Okay, those are the reduced fractions. Now this is what we're going to do. Ready? We're going to go ahead and write our two groupings. We're going to put in an x in the first spot because that's the variable that's in our problem here. We're going to put in those two fractions we just had, minus 1/3 and minus 4. So in step 4 here, it says we're going to take and slide the coefficients. You ready? We're going to take this 3 that we see here, we're going to slide it over. And what we're going to end up with is a new fraction, or a new binomial here that says we have 3 and then x minus 1. That's it. That is the factored form for this. Now, what's nice is that we can check every one of our answers. If I go back and multiply this out, we get 3x squared minus 12x minus 1x and positive 4. And all that multiplied out is, or combined is 3x squared, negative 13x, and positive 4. Okay, so that checks out. Okay? So let's try going through this. And you just go ahead and pause it, go back, watch at your own speed, but now I'm just going to do these full speed ahead. Okay, feel free to pause it as needed. Okay? So the a value in this is 2, the b value in this is negative 5, the c value in this is 3. A times c is 2 times 3, which equals 6. The factors of 6 are 1 and 6, 2 and 3. They need to add up to my b value, which is a negative 5. So the only way I can do that, this is a tricky one here. The only way I could get that is if I did a 1 minus 6, or if I do a negative 2 and a negative 3. Now, when we check this one, this is where you got to be careful. 1 and negative 6 will give me a negative 5 when I put those together. But when I multiply these together, 1 times negative 6 does not equal a positive 6. However, negative 2 and negative 3, when we put them together, does add up to negative 5. But negative 2 and negative 3, when we multiply it, does actually multiply to equal 6. So we know that the correct one for this is not 1 and negative 6, but rather it's going to be negative 2 and negative 3. So we're going to move those up there. And we're going to continue the process. You ready? We're going to divide by the a value, in this case, which is 2. Again, our a value is right here, which is 2. And we're going to go ahead and reduce those fractions, which means we get negative 1 and negative 3 over 2, which does not reduce. Write our binomials. We're going to have an x. We're going to have a minus 1 and a minus 3 over 2. And then we're going to slide this 2 over because that's on the denominator. And we have x minus 1 is equal to 2. And then we have x minus 3. That's it. Okay. All right, let's continue on to number 3. We're going to go ahead and multiply. Now I'm going to skip right in A, B, and C here. You can see them. They're 5, 14, and negative 3. Multiply in C, we're going to get 5 times negative 3, which equals negative 15. Factors of 15 are 1 and 15, 3 and 5. We're trying to get a negative 14. The only way we get that is with 1 minus 15. So that's using those two. We're going to divide by A. Reduce our fractions. We get 1 over 5 and then negative 3. Those are reduced. And now let's see if I can do this in one step. You ready? We're going to do x and x. We're going to have minus 3. Now this 1 over 5, try to imagine if we slid the 5 over so we could do this in one solid step here. I'm going to move this x. And if we move that 5 over, it's going to be a 5 and then a minus 1. That's it. Oh, I made a mistake here. I made a mistake. Sorry, we need a positive 14, not a negative 14. Okay? So I have to go back and change some of my signs here so you guys can actually see how signs get affected by this, okay? We need a positive 14. I don't know why I thought it was a negative 14. So we're going to have to switch some numbers around here. So this is going to be a positive. We're not going to change anything too drastic. It's going to be a 15 minus a 1. Okay? And you can see that that's going to change our signs down on the bottom here to a positive 3 and a negative 1/5. Okay? And that means that this is going to be a positive 3 right here. Okay? Let's try number 4. We're going to multiply A and C together. So that's going to be 7 times negative 2, which is going to equal negative 14. We're trying to get a positive 13 here. So 1 and 14, 2 and 7. The only way we can get that is by doing 14 minus 1. Okay. We're going to go ahead and divide by my A value. We're going to reduce the fractions. We get 2 and negative 1 over 7. Try to imagine moving the 7 up. And what we're going to have is a 7x minus 1. And then we're going to have a x plus 2. Okay, there you go. All right, a couple more here. Number 5, we're going to go ahead and multiply together the A and the C. So we get 3 times negative 10. I'm not going to color code this time. I'm just going to go so you guys can kind of see how quick this is. 3 times negative 10 is negative 30. Factors of negative 30 are going to be 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. We need a negative 1, so it's going to be 5 minus 6. We're going to divide by my A value. Oops. We're going to reduce those fractions, which 5 over 3 does not reduce, and that reduces to a negative 2. So, and we're going to imagine sliding the 3 to the front. So what's going to happen is we're going to have 3x plus 5, and then an x minus a 2. Okay. Let's try number 6. We're going to multiply a and c, which is going to be 4 times 6, which is 24. We're trying to get an 11 from the b value, so it's 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Using a 3 and an 8, I get an 11, so 3 plus 8. We're going to divide by a. We're going to reduce the fractions. 3 over 4 does not reduce. 8 over 4 reduces to a 2. Imagine sliding that 4 over, and we'll have a 4x plus 3 and an x plus 2. Okay. So in these last two, we're going to add one extra step to these. We are going to actually go ahead and now solve them. So we're going to do one more step at the end, which is to solve for x. And I'm going to show you a really nice shortcut for doing that. You ready? So we're still going to do the exact same process like before. We're going to multiply a and c. So that means we're going to have 3 times 4. Okay. That's going to equal 12. Factors of 12 that add up to 8 are going to be 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. 8 will be from 2 and 6, so 2 plus 6. We're going to divide by my a value. We're going to reduce those fractions. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you a trick, but I'm going to do the work first so you can see it. So again, slide the 3 over here, and this would be a 3x plus 2, and then an x plus 2, and that's going to equal 0. So if we solve each one of these, we're saying that 3x plus 2 is equal to 0, and x plus 2 is equal to 0. And if we solve this, we're going to have 3x is equal to negative 2. Divided by 3, we get x equals negative 2 over 3. And then if we took x is equal to negative 2 and solve, we are done. We know what that two x's are equal to. Now here's the shortcut, okay? I want you to notice the similarity between this value right here and the value that we've got over here. Do you see it? What about this value here and this value here? Do you see it? They're opposites. So the shortcut for this is to literally just take the answers from that you got from reducing your fractions and say that x equals negative 2 over 3 and negative 2. Just take the opposites and those are your answers. You ready? Let's do one more and we are done with the notes here. All right. So for number 1, we're going to multiply a and c. We're going to have 7 times negative 3, which equals negative 21. We're going to have factors of 21 are 1 and 21, 3 and 7. We're trying to get a negative 4, so that's 3 minus 7, because that equals negative 4. Divide by my a value. 3 over 7 does not reduce. Negative 7 over 7 does reduce to negative 1. We're going to solve and just take the opposites, which means that x is going to equal negative 3 over 7, and x is going to equal 1. And there are your answers. Again, I hope you watch this at your speed. If there's something you didn't really follow, go back and do it again, but do it at your pace and make sure you're comfortable, okay? And let me know if you have any questions. Take care.